Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System.
Half-Life comes out, it changes the PC gaming world. It's the most amazing game ever made for its time. And two college kids took Half-Life and made this game called Counter-Strike as a free modification that you just download.
At the time, I was really interested in counter-terrorist forces. That level of sophistication in terms of the weaponry, in terms of the tactics, I thought that would make a great theme for a game.
Early on, we had to beg people to help us out. Even just to get playtesters, we had to beg people, hey, do you want to come play our mod? And a lot of people would be like, no thanks, not interested. So we just kind of put it out there thinking, you know, a couple hundred people might think it was cool.
I guess it wasn't until maybe 6 months after we released the very first version that we saw that this game had a potential to become something really bigger than we expected it to.
The fact that it was this cool new shooter that was multiplayer, I think that's what really interested me in the game.
It was not about shooting people to me, it was about strategy and outsmarting your opponents.
Counter-Strike was different than anything else. You had to buy your weapons, only a couple bullets killed you. You went and did something risky early or something stupid, you were stuck watching for the full 5 minutes.
This wasn't a game for the faint of heart. This wasn't a game for people who wanted to respawn as soon as they died. Your actions in Counter-Strike matter. Early on when we were developing, the community feedback would basically color our next beta release. There was so much energy at that time and so many fans who really felt like they were part of the development.
People were just submitting so much content. We were getting maps, I don't know, maybe 100 a week.
As we released a couple of betas, we had been talking to Valve that whole time because they had noticed the player numbers for Counter-Strike were pretty high.
Counter-Strike came out and immediately was at 8,000 simultaneous peak players. A week later it was at 12,000, a month later it was at 16, and we saw that there was something happening here. And so we immediately said, you know, we've got to find a way to work with these guys.
And it was really cool to be talking to Valve at that time because we kind of idolized these guys. We loved Half-Life, we were fans of Valve.
Valve came on board around beta 5. When they came on, that was the point where it really just took off.
Counter-Strike started out as the side event at the CPL tournament while Quake was the big game. In 2001, Counter-Strike took over the venue.
The key for Counter-Strike in me is very early on it became like kind of a global game, you know. It was one of the first esport that wasn't just like a few countries are really into it or just one region's into it. It's like nearly the whole world to some degree was interested in Counter-Strike. So it was only actually changes within the community that changed how the game was played and how you conceive of what is Counter-Strike, which is this 5v5 defusal game that eventually later had a lower round timer, only uses these certain maps. Like when we first had the first tournaments, no one knew what the good maps were, so we used to play almost all the maps.
Like even into 1.6, Valve always understood the community were a big part of Counter-Strike, and that was really the one thing that they never really changed.
So when Counter-Strike first became a Valve property, one of the immediate tasks was to figure out what was going on with updates.
Having Steam to automatically do your updates for you is almost life-changing at this point.
Whereas actually back then, when the patch comes out, that's depressing because now I know I'm not going to be playing for 2 days because not only do I have to download it, which will take me many hours, but the download speed's going to go a lot slower because there was no Steam. So as a result, everyone in the world is now trying to download that one patch from that one server.
You know, that was really the genesis of the idea for Steam, was to figure out how could we automatically update all these folks.
Source blows my mind that people have almost kind of omitted it from Counter-Strike history. It did have some issues at launch, I don't think there's any doubt about that, which did turn a lot of the people off because obviously if you've got an existing game that's been out for years and it's great and everything works perfectly fine because it's been tweaked, and then you've got something new and it doesn't quite work, obviously you're going to stick to the one that you know and stick to the one that you feel is complete. I thought the game was great. I had lots of fun. I met like really cool people who I'm still friends with to this day through playing Source.
CSGO felt like the last hope for Counter-Strike in many ways. And what was a very pleasant surprise was actually within 6 to 12 months of the initial release, the game was improving very quickly in fact, much quicker than normally you would expect.
The difference with CSGO was that they introduced matchmaking.
Prior to matchmaking, you would join a server and you didn't know the skill level of the players that were on the server. Compared to today's, where they automatically find the best match for you, and it's very automated, and I think in that sense it made it very user-friendly.
The skins update was a big change for the community, giving you something you can buy, something that you can customize your guns.
It's done where it doesn't necessarily impact gameplay, but it gives people this exciting element to keep coming back and keep playing to get more skins.
In CSGO, you have the ability for the community members to support the game with all of their content.
I think the workshop has over 150,000 items in it, and people will aspire to have those items or better designs or things like that, or have their own designs in the game, where people can design maps, and the ones that are the most popular get put in the game itself.
I just decided it's something I wanted to do. To be able to create something that the community was able to play and they do enjoy, that's awesome. Sometimes I go to events and people tell me Cache is their favorite map, and I would have never imagined that would have happened.
One of the biggest things about Counter-Strike, just how it's always been evolving, but yet the fundamentals of it haven't really changed at all. And it's the community involvement that I think has been so big to the growth of it over time.
That sort of immediate feedback loop, which was so important early on and guided every single beta release, is still happening today with our Steam releases, where we're updating even more frequently than we did back then.
The core that Counter-Strike has, that almost no other esports game I'm aware of has actually, is that on the most simple level, people intuitively understand the concept of a person versus a person with a weapon, but the more you bring to the table, the more you take away with Counter-Strike.
That is one of the most absurd things I have seen.
It's the kind of game where you're always on a quest to be better, best in your region, or the best in your continent, or the best in the world. This game has a history which spans people's lives. There are many steps to the ladder, and the ladder has no end. I think the reason Counter-Strike is one of the greatest games of all time is there is always something new to learn. Like a new smoke, a new flashbang, a new boost where you can see a part of the map people didn't think you could before.
There's so many different and valid ways to approach the game. Sometimes you see teams from China versus teams from Sweden versus teams from the US, and they all have these different approaches to the game.
And now we're in a position where we're getting million-dollar tournaments, interactivity, in-game items.
With each version of the game, through each generation of gamers, Counter-Strike has just continued to grow.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere other than bigger and better.